One thing that a lot of people overlook within their job servicing or remote service business is landing high ticket jobs, making the most amount of money per customer as possible. This is something where I've had people come to me making an average of $500 a sale, and a month later they're making three times more money with the same amount of customers just because they locked in a proper fulfillment and sales process. So there is multiple parts to this, right? Of course, the quality of the leads, what industry it's in, that also matters. But in this video, I'm going to be talking about the thing that's mostly overlooked, which is the actual sales process. So, I just pulled up some screenshots of some higher ticket jobs from my job servicing business, some of the other people that I've worked with, and you can see consistently there are $5,000 plus jobs coming through. And so, like I said, of course, the industry, the service, the customer type will matter a lot, right? Landscaping is not the same as car detailing, where one you can get a $45,000 job. I don't know why I said 45,000. That just kind of came out of nowhere in my mind. But where you can get a $40,000 job, and detailing where you can might at best get a $2,000 job for like a ceramic coating or whatever, right? And at the same time, drain cleaning is not the same as a water heater replacement. So these are both under plumbing. However, the actual service itself is going to be different, right? And so the ticket sizes will base off of the niche, the urgency level of the service itself, the size of the actual job, and also what specific keywords you target, right? Whether you're, again, targeting water heater replacements or drain cleaning, that's going to matter, as well as the customer type. So what areas you're in, if you're in the middle of the hood, or if you're in an affluent area with a lot of, nice neighborhoods and nice people and rich people, I guess, as well as like a residential versus commercial client. B2B sales are not the same as B2C sales, right? If you are working with another business, you are going to be able to charge more, right? And a lot of the jobs are going to be bigger. So again, where your profile is listed, if you're doing this through Google My Business the way that I do, by the way, again, if you're new here, I basically run a completely automated job servicing business through Google My Business. So I list these profiles on Google in different areas with low competition, high demand. I get calls for those services, partner with a contractor who takes care of the jobs, and I take a 40% commission. But where you actually list these profiles will matter, right? What areas, as well as the service category, right? So if you're doing house cleaning service versus janitorial service, these are both cleaning, but one is commercial based and one is residential based. So again, this does matter, of course, but one thing that a lot of people overlook, again, is sales process. So the actual leads that are already coming in, how can you capitalize off of them, and how can you make the most amount of money possible? Again, this is something that personally I had a lot of trouble with in the beginning, and something where I had to kind of get fucked for me to actually like take this seriously and lock in on it. I had multiple profiles get suspended a while back, and this is what really made me lock in on my sales process. And I lost 2/3 of my business in terms of the actual profiles and lead volume, but I was making the same amount of money, right? Because I locked in my sales process. So basically, this is how you can go, for example, from a $500 job to a $1,000 job. And also, this is why it is very important to have a solid process when it comes to vetting and onboarding your contractor, because your contractor is going to be a huge part of your sales process. And so working with the right people is going to be a huge, huge thing. And that's something that I make sure now anytime I onboard a contractor or help any of the people that I work with onboard a contractor, we're making sure that the actual vetting and onboarding process is nailed down and locked in, right? So there's going to be a couple steps to actually capitalizing off of every single one of your leads and making the most amount of money from them, right? So the first thing is actually increasing what is included in the job and the service that you're offering. So this could be finding additional issues, and then also explaining risks and consequences as far as, hey, if you don't do this, this might happen, okay? So for example, if you are in the plumbing industry like I am, for example, you might come in and your contractor might say to the customer, okay, well, while we're here, we can offer a full house inspection for an additional whatever, maybe upsell them on the inspection as well, $100. Typically it'd be, $400 for us to come out, but while we're here, we offer it as like $100. And that way we can see if there's any other issues with your plumbing needs, so that you can address them before they become, a huge issue that might cost you thousands of dollars later down the line. And that's one way where you can kind of get in and find additional things that might need to be worked on. And so you'll offer to look at things that are related to the first issue. That's a really good way to actually get your foot through the door. So again, for example, if somebody's toilet is clogged, again, I don't know shit about plumbing. So again, this is why you need a good contractor. But for example, let's say a toilet clog has some type of relation with a kitchen sink clog, right? You can make that correlation, bring it up to the customer and tell them, hey, like, because this issue is happening, this is why it would make sense for us to check something like this out. Another thing that I had my guy do all the time is blaming the last the last contractor. He'd be like, oh, okay, well, do you remember who actually did this? Because this is horrible, right? So you'd sit there at the fucking drain trying to snake it and say, this is all fucked up. If this guy did any other plumbing work in your house, might as well check it out because it might be fucked up too. And again, this isn't like scamming. It is, again, of course, you only want to be saying this stuff if it's true, but a lot of times it actually is. And so that is one way that you can actually increase the job size, what's actually included in the job, so that you can obviously make more money if it is a bigger job. Now, the second thing is going to be LARPing the job complexity, okay? For those of you who might not be like, I guess in the younger audience, LARP basically means kind of like almost make up or make it seem like this is way more complicated than it actually is, right? So break down what the issues are, but your contractor is going to be the one doing this. But if he does this in a way where it seems like whatever's going on is pretty fucking bad, that is going to increase the perceived value of the job, right? The customer is going to be okay with paying more for something that seems like it could be a really big issue, that is honestly very complicated. And it also just gives some social proof and credit to your contractor. When the customer knows that the person you're working with actually knows what they're talking about, they know what they're doing, they feel a lot more safe having this person work on their home and taking care of serious issues, right? So again, for example, if your contractor says, yeah, so X issue, whatever, this thing can cause this and that to happen, which is caused by this and that. Again, customer knows, okay, well, he knows what he's talking about. He seems like he's, a solid guy. Of course, obviously, this is, again, why I'm saying vet your contractors to make sure they're not just going to be a complete dumbass, rude to the customers and whatnot. But if your contractor comes into the home, he's polite, Susan, the homeowner, likes him and thinks he's a great guy and that he's, just super nice and very helpful, and he starts explaining these things out of a place of willingness to help. A lot of this stuff might sound like I'm trying to make it so that you're like scamming these customers. Absolutely not. Now, again, in the trades, that is a very common thing where you kind of do get ripped off if you don't really know what you're talking about or what you're doing. If you're a customer, like you might get ripped off because you don't know who to trust, so you just kind of be safe. But a lot of this does come from like a place of like actual wanting to help, right? If things are, if things can be done better, then why not, right? Even if it's going to cost the customer more, again, it might cost them even more down the line if they let that issue persist. So this is another way to kind of increase the perceived value of the job. And then this is honestly the one that kind of changed everything for me, was having multiple tiers in terms of solutions for what issue this customer might be having. So the biggest one for me with my plumbing business was clogs, right? When somebody's like main line was clogged or whatever, if they had like a drain issue, usually like a kitchen sink. Again, I don't know shit about plumbing, so I'm just kind of like off the top of my head. This is kind of like what I remember, kind of the last time we had a hydrojet. But this is what I have my guy all the time try to do, is upsell hydrojets on drain jobs, right? Anytime that a drain needs to be cleared, we'll upsell something else. So this is just like a really, really good example of one of those things. But whatever the fix might be to whatever issue they have, there is probably going to be a better, more expensive fix, right? And this is not going to apply for everything. However, there's always something better that can be done for obviously more expensive, right? So yes, if somebody's kitchen sink drain is clogged, you can snake it. However, if we are able to hydrojet this kitchen sink, instead of it being, the issue being solved for the next 3 months and you paying $300 for it, it might be solved for the next 5 years, and you're not going to have to pay $300. It's going to be maybe $2,000. But if you think about it over time, you're saving yourself thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, right? And so instead of fixing the issue again months later and paying another $300 and then another $300 and then calling someone back, we'll clear this up and we'll make sure that for the next 5 years, and we'll give you a warranty, blah, blah, blah. that you're not going to run into this problem again, right? So that's honestly the biggest thing that I had that kind of changed the game for me and made my business a ton more money off of the existing customers. Again, whether it was like customer wants to get something installed, offering a better version of whatever product it was, and taking a commission off of that as well. Again, the drains are a really, really big one for me that I get a lot for my plumbing business, but lots of ways and things that you can do to make this happen. And again, I also want a proper contractor who also knows what kind of things can be added. And again, I have a full onboarding process. So again, over time, obviously, after hearing a million customers talk and whatnot, I noted everything down. I wrote down the things that happened, and I had a formal meeting with my guy to actually build out a proper game plan as far as upselling jobs and making more money. So that's why I was able to make a shit ton of money a lot quicker. But if you were to have that process from the very beginning, like you already know what things are going to arise and you already account for those when you get your first jobs coming through, you're just going to speed run yourself and make thousands of dollars extra per month, because you're not missing out on a ton of jobs. And a big thing that I would always do on the phone, this is something that I had a little bit more control over, is just anchoring the price. And again, you also want your contractor to do this in applicable situations, but a lot of the times customers will call asking for a quote over the phone. And so I never quote over the phone. I always book an inspection for my contractor to quote in person so he can close the job on site. However, whenever they are, very persistent on, I want a price, I can say, hey, look, like I can give you a range on this, or I can talk to my guy and he'll be able to give you a range. But again, there's so many reasons why this issue might be happening and so many things that might need to happen, which is, again, why we send somebody out in the first place. It's so that we can give you transparent pricing. But again, if I know that the job might cost $700, I'll tell the customer, yeah, so it might be anywhere from like $400 to $1,500, right? It could be anywhere that on the low end 400, on the high end 1,500. And so now when they're prepared to hear, okay, well, in the middle they'll probably think it's $1,000 or maybe $1,100, and you tell them it's actually only 700, they're going to feel a lot less resistance to paying that because they've kind of overcome the hurdle and they've accepted, like, fuck, I gotta pay $1,000 for this. When they hear 700, they're a lot happier to pay up and give you your money. So these are the main things in terms of the sales process. Again, a lot of this does come down to just actually formally, like properly building a good relationship with your contractor, having incentives for him to do these upsells, working with a solid guy, a proper, contractor that's going to be motivated to make you and him more money, as well as just narrowing this down over time. It will take a little bit of time. It will take a little bit of effort, but I genuinely have had people come to me. They're making a couple grand a month with their remote service businesses. I help them out with, a couple quick things in their fulfillment process, and they're, making 2 times more money. So a couple really big things that people overlook a lot that you want to make sure that you are taking into account. So yep, that's basically everything. That's everything in terms of actually booking in these higher ticket jobs and the sales process behind it. If you like this video, then like and subscribe, and watch some of my other videos to learn more about what I do and how I operate this business. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one to scale your remote service business to 20 grand a month within the next 2 months, even if you're starting from scratch, schedule a call with me. It's going to be the first link in the description. I'll run you through the exact process of us working together. We'll be setting everything up together. I'll be helping you build each part of the process out step by step, one-on-one. So if you're interested in what that would look like, schedule a call with me. I'll run you through the process. And first link in the description. Aside from that, I have a school community. It's dirt cheap if you're just kind of starting and you want to test the waters. It's the second link in the description. Again, appreciate you guys all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.